You're listening to the Build a Better Business series from the More Than More podcast. We're here to share the tools and strategies you need to journey from survival to significance with your leads, team, systems, and money. Let's get started. All right. Good morning, Dylan. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Friday, sunny morning.
Looking forward to this conversation.
I am too. In a extremely nerdy, passionate way almost, I'm looking forward to this conversation. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I suppose at some point we need to talk about what the conversation is.
Yeah.
But before we do that, this conversation, I mean, it's just at the center of everything that we do, believe, understand. It's at the center of the new CRM. It's at the center of how we think. And it's probably one of the biggest, maybe, misunderstandings.
That's exactly. I was so excited to get this recorded because of that. I'm realizing as we're onboarding our people into the CRM, I forget that they're maybe not 100% sure on what these two lists are. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I talk to every new agent. I talk to every transfer. I talk to all of our people. And especially it's become even clearer in our new CRM, the understanding of these two important lists. So we believe every good real estate business has two really important lists, your database and your sales funnel. And I'm 100% with you. There is some misunderstanding about what these lists are and how people work through them and understand them, how they work separately. Sometimes they have a really good funnel because they think that's what they should have, but they have no understanding of database, and sometimes it's vice versa. So I'm excited to talk through this.
And you know me well. I live in a philosophical world, but it's because I believe that ideas matter and that they define your future actions, and that small distinctions, a 1 degree differential between true north and just 1 degree off, over time, multiplied over multiple sets of actions,
off the rails a little bit.
100% different outcome. And I think this is a perfect example of this. And when you get this idea right in your head, it's a force multiplier that really, I think, just creates clarity, and I think it creates clarity on the work to be done. And I think that's what I want to take away from this today.
Exactly. So I want to dig into understanding these lists a little bit. I want to talk about the work to be done in each of these spaces. And then I really want to get to the space where these two lists can work beautifully together. And that's kind of the end game with the way that we coach on building businesses by referral. So super excited. Let's get started I'm going to start with sales funnel. It seems maybe backwards in the way that we typically coach, but I feel like this is the space that most people think of first. They think of, when I have a list of people in my real estate business, I feel like they think of their leads first, the people that come in for the business side of things. And especially in working with transfers, I find that this is the list that maybe have first and foremost and maybe haven't thought at all about their actual peeps in the database side. So I want to start with sales funnel. Is that okay? Are we okay with that?
It is, and you're in charge.
So
but you know me, I'm really good at ruining things.
I'm okay with that too. We can roll.
The way I want to ruin this for you is to me, I can't have this conversation well without starting at the highest level, which is to define the two lists. And as we talk to the sales funnel, I think we need to first start with the other. So that's the list of our leads,
just your leads,
our prospects, our transactions, our pendings, and our closed. It's where we transact. It's where we are professional tradespeople, and we happen to be in the business of buying and selling houses.
Yes.
The other list is the list of our peeps, our people, our relationships, our friends, our family. And the notion here at the highest level is that these two separate lists have two fundamentally different works to be done, and that we must learn to engage in them differently. And not borrow the MO that we need to engage in. There's two separate hats we need to wear.
Completely, yes.
And so, okay, so we can jump back into the funnel.
Yes.
And maybe I want to start with what I would call the biggest problem that we have with the funnel is that we treat our database like it's the top of our funnel.
I agree.
And so that's the first point I think I want to make is that your database is not the top of your funnel.
Exactly.
Your database is a fundamentally different list, a different job that you have that's about a different set of outcomes. The outcome primarily is about getting referrals.
Yes.
This is what we're endeavoring to do.
Yep.
And when we get a referral, that does enter into the top of our sales funnel. But it is not the top of our sales funnel. And the reason that's important is, we need to not engage in our relationships transactionally.
Yeah, and that's actually the number one thing that I hear in this space. Well, I don't want to, as you prostitute my relationships. And so
We should probably define that better. But yes, I've said that for years.
Yes, you've said that. And that
what does it mean to prostitute
they think
a
that
relationship?
is being salesy to your people. And that's completely not the point. And I think that's why these lists are conflated in a way, like why people could join them together, and they are completely separate things. I was even imagining, as you just described that, when I go do the work in my sales funnel, I'm literally doing a completely different set of things than when I go look at my database. This is the completely different set of work that I'm going to go do with that. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe it would help
going
you
on the sales
to
funnel.
define the sales funnel.
Yeah.
And steer me here, because you know me, I'm liable to just go off track. But
this is a good topic.
Yeah. I mean, our sales funnel is our forecast sheet.
Yep.
And that's how we've structured that in our new CRM. And it's how we've always structured it. We've said, you've got to have your business. And it starts with leads. It works its way all the way down. This is where we put on I'm helping a buyer or a seller transact
with a specific need. Yeah.
And we've always taught that that's just a game of working people systematically through the progression. And so for a buyer, we understand that if you're a buyer lead, the number one thing you're looking for is, houses.
Yes.
And if you're a lead, you're a name and a number. And what I need to do to move you to the next step in the funnel is I need to ask you some questions about what you're looking for. Yes. Because if I'm going to make you a prospect, it means I know that what your needs and your wants are.
Yep.
So I can start to fulfill those. So a lead we need to make contact with them. We need to ask some questions. We need to find out what they're looking for so we can start to fill that. Well, that's a very specific transactional.
Yes.
And this is where we got to define this. It's transactional in the sense that we're engaging in our trade. Our trade is the business of helping buyers buy and the business of helping sellers sell. And it's like your work boots.
Yeah.
And so when you have a person that's looking to buy, if you spend too much time just asking them about the weather, their kids, or updating them on what's going on in the market,
you're not giving them what they need or want.
Because at this point, if I'm a buyer lead, there's one thing I want.
Yep.
I don't want to know you. I don't care about your kids, and I don't want you to talk about mine. What I want is information on houses. And the best thing you need to do is find out what I'm looking for so that you can start giving me opportunities that I can look at, so you can move me to the next benchmark, which is get me in houses.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean we're not relational.
Yes.
And so I think that we need to take the idea of relational business, and we need to put that as the umbrella above both areas
sides.
of our business.
It is not, the T-chart is not separate on these.
We are relational intrinsically. Our approach is relational. Our approach to our database is relational, and our approach to our sales funnel is relational, because we put people first, and we put the person before the sale. But that doesn't change the fact that when we're dealing with people in our sales funnel, their principal interest, what they need, what value looks like for them at that moment, is a relational, transactional set of inputs.
Yeah.
It's I want the properties, I want the showings, I want the feedback on my listing. If we spend too much time on what we do with our
building
database,
the relationship,
we're going to start to feel like, well, what you're not giving me is what I need in this moment right now.
And I feel like that conversion there maybe wouldn't happen, right? Because you're focused too much on the wrong thing. And it's okay to put the relational hat on and just provide value, right? I mean, providing value to them. When you have a prospect and you know what they need or want, you are leaning into their needs and their wants, giving them those things in the way of value so that they raise their hand, to then close for the appointment, get them in front of you, get them looking at houses. So I think we still provide value, we still build the relationship, but we give them what they need or want to move them through the funnel.
One way I like to think about this is through the lens of LRC on both lists.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I've taught is that we're providing LRC, leadership, helping people know where we're going and where we're not going, relationship, letting them know that we've got their back, they can trust us, and we're here for them.
Yeah.
And then finally creativity, which is we're opening up capabilities and options and peripherals that they otherwise didn't have. LRC is always the deliverable, just like relational is always the approach.
Yep.
But in the funnel, what LRC looks like is providing insights that are specific to their immediate need and want, which
100%.
is I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
So we provide direction, we provide relationship and confidence, and we provide capability in this trade context. And maybe it's helpful to define that. We have a very specific set of goals that we have for this person
Yes.
when they're in our funnel. the first thing we're looking to do is incubate. We're incubating an opportunity because sometimes they're not ready to buy now.
Yes, it takes a while.
They're only willing to meet with you 6 months from now because that's when they're thinking of selling. So we incubate, then we convert. We're moving people from one benchmark to the next. A lead
One
needs
at
to
a
become
time.
a prospect.
Yep.
We don't need to take someone that's a name and a number that's thinking of buying or selling 2 years from now and
Get
turn
them
them
under
into
contract.
a sale.
Yes, exactly.
We need to close for the next benchmark and move people forward through a process that they want to go through.
Yeah.
Our job's to be the guide and to help them journey through that. 1, incubate. 2, convert. 3, serve. This is what we do in the middle of our funnel. We actually help them. We show them the homes. We walk them through the process.
Yep.
We negotiate the deal for them. All the stuff that they actually signed up for.
Yes.
Then we administrate.
Yes.
And this is now we've got this pending phase.
From pending to close.
And we've got all this paperwork.
Yep.
We've got all these inspections and appraisals, and it's all backstage, but we also communicate through that process, and then we close. This is the sales funnel.
Yes.
It's lead, prospect, client
pending,
contract, close.
Yeah.
But it's really incubate, convert, serve,
That's
administrate, and close.
Yeah, that's good.
And this is what we do when we're in our sales funnel. And that's a job.
Yes.
And it's a job that I want to think about as, I think of it as work boots, because this is the trade that I actually say, this is the thing I sell, this is what I tell people they need to refer to. And when someone that, let's say, is a relationship or someone that is referred to me shows up at the top of that funnel, I have to remember that what they're looking for from me is my professional trade capabilities.
Yes.
It's still relational. It's still LRC, but it's in the context of the trade. Now, if they happen to have a birthday at that point, can I still sing happy birthday to them?
Yes, you should probably do those kinds of things.
Yes, but it's not what they're looking for right now.
No,
and
that's an unexpected extra.
Sure. It doesn't mean that our other list of working relationally with people in terms of our relationships in our CRM isn't something that overlaps. It's just, we've got to remember that our audience in 2 different spaces has 2 different prime needs and wants.
Yeah.
And when your mom or dad or uncle or best friend from college, all of a sudden that you've been dealing with for 5 years in your CRM as just a relationship, now decides to transact.
Raise their hand, yes.
You must put a different set of work boots on,
Yes.
go to work and shine.
Yes.
Because our fundamental goal of guiding anyone through the sales funnel is to sell a house, but more importantly, it's to create an advocate. And no matter how much people like you and how much they appreciate the updates you provide them on their home,
If you can't deliver.
if you don't show them your capacity to deliver your product, then you're going to turn off the faucet of referrals.
Absolutely.
Because this is the thing that they're referring to is your capacity to shine. I got a story about that I always like to tell. It's my buddy BJ. Did I ever tell you the story?
I think I've heard the story. Yeah.
Bjorn, he swam with me.
Yep.
And after swimming, we lifted together, we coached together, we did a bunch of stuff. Big dude, Bjorn. and one day BJ wanted to list his house. When I was selling still. And he had me, I went over to his property to list it. And I sat down, I toured the property. And so we're buddies, right? We're close buddies. We're hanging out every week. And I sat down and I worked through my listing presentation systematically, the same way I do with everyone. I went through the whole thing, the pricing, how I market, how I do what I do and why I do it. And at the end, he just sat there and like looked at me with this weird pause. It was so strange. And I don't know, like he didn't tear up or anything, but like, there was an emotionalism to this blank stare, and he just said, "Whoa, man,
you kind of know.
I am so proud of you."
Yeah. Yep.
And it was a moment that what I realized is I could have skipped all that,
Yes.
and I could have just, because he trusted me, and I could have just said, "Okay, let's get
go
the
look at
paperwork
houses."
signed."
Yeah.
But what I got to show BJ was my trade, my work
Yes.
boots, my professionalism. This is what I do, and this is why I'm good. And this, refer to me because you like me. But now refer to me because you like me and because you're like, whoa, this guy's good at what he does.
Yeah.
And I think that's a metaphor maybe for remembering that when it's time to deliver the value, LRC, on the transaction side, that there's a different set of work boots you got to put on, and it's you can't leave them at home.
Yeah, and I think I learned that actually the opposite way. I made the mistake of working with a friend early on and not sitting them down and giving them what they deserve professionally, and the process did not go as smoothly as I wanted it to. So now, I mean, my sister raised her hand recently and I was like, you know what? No, let's stop talking about this when we're just hanging out. I actually really want to sit down a completely separate time. Let's do a full-on buyer consultation because I want to walk you through this process the way you deserve to be walked through.
Yeah.
So that was, really learning to put that different set of hat on when I worked with my sister, one of my best relationships, she get to have that other experience. So yeah, key points of sales funnel. Kind of just wrapping this up, I always say the easiest way to think of funnel, they don't go in your funnel until they raise their hand for real estate, right? So even if they're over here, until they raise their hand for real estate in some capacity, and that is also expanding your list. Some people forget about other people that have raised their hand. All those people go into your sales funnel. The goal is moving them one benchmark at a time, putting your different trade hat on. And I specifically thought about incubation. People always ask, what do you mean incubate? What do I send? What do I give? And I think that the leadership and the creativity are kind of the pieces I lean into there as far as, well, give them leadership and ideas of where to go next. And the creativity piece, have you thought about these first-time home buyer grants? And like you're giving them ideas and direction to help kind of provide value and give value in incubation.
Incubating people that are high up on the funnel, but maybe are a long ways out.
Yeah. Like people just struggle with what to send, what to give, what to follow up with. What do I say? What do I do?
Yeah, but I think maybe what helps that is simplifying the game. Back to, we don't close for the sale, we close for the benchmark.
Yes.
A lead is a name and a number, and what you need is more information so that you can find out what they're looking for.
Yep.
So what's the job to be done with a buyer that's a lead? You've got to find more information. So the best way to do that, close for the coffee, close for
a phone call,
a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, help me understand a little bit more what you're looking for. Hey, fill out this piece of paper so that I can understand. Hey, here's 3 or 4 options. Are these even close to what you're looking for? And what we're doing is refining their interests so that we can get closer and closer to being able to isolate and then send them what they actually want.
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to say is it's LRC, but it's really, really helpful to simplify this down to the most core human need in a way. What does a buyer want? Mm-hmm. What does a buyer want?
They want a house.
Properties.
Yep.
Send me properties.
Yep.
And so the whole game is finding them better and better properties and more options, and then realizing that sometimes people say they have to have a 3-car garage, and then they buy a 2-car. Mm-hmm. So sometimes our job is to send them exactly the things they want, and then sometimes to send them some things that maybe are a little off track, and then say, hey, by the way, this is off track.
Insight. Yeah.
But what would you think of this? Mm-hmm. So that we are being truly valuable to them.
Yep.
LRC in that says, like, hey, remember you said you wouldn't want this, but I'm sending it to you just because sometimes what I find is people can't find what they're looking for, but they find something wonderful that's missing one of the things they thought was a non-negotiable, and then they change their mind. So I'm not trying to steer you, of course, but hey, check this out just in case. I think that's C, creativity. I think that's L, on, hey, this is something I've seen before and you need to be aware of that.
Yep.
But it's not complicated.
No.
It's buyers want properties, and sellers, this is interesting because you've heard this before.
Yep.
Sellers, well, if you ask the question to people, what do sellers want? You'd think they want to sell their house. Most times it's not what they want.
Yeah.
What sellers are actually looking to do is to buy.
To move.
They want to move.
Yeah, exactly.
And so psychologically, how do we help incubate? Sellers, it's not that complicated. Make sure we're discussing with them the thing they're actually interested in. Selling their house is an obstacle to overcome. It's a pain, it sucks, and it's negative, and it's hard, and it's expensive. Mm-hmm. Buying a house is the thing they want to do, and selling the house is the path, is the obstacle in the way.
The way to get there, yeah.
So I think that in the same way in our funnel psychologically, it's not that complicated. We've got to make sure we understand the seller's motivation and keep in front of them the thing that they actually want, which is where they're trying to get to.
Where they're trying to go. Yep.
Maybe that's Texas. So maybe we just need to know more about what they're buying, when they're buying it, how that's going to work, because we're not involved.
Yeah.
If we are involved, we need to first lead with that.
Yep.
Even though we must sell before we buy, we must bring what they're buying to the forefront as part of the game to keep them on track. And then what they need, which is different than what they want, is they need to start getting a plan together on how they're going to sell their house for the maximum amount of money in the best amount of time. It's not that complicated, but it is the trade, and it's a specific set of work boots. I love the LRC element of this conversation. Because it's taking it from the abstract into a practical space.
The practicals, the things that you can do to help them move forward. That's our job in that space, I think, definitely. All right, let's switch our hats. Let's put on our database relationship hat, right? So what are some of the foundational, fundamental things that people need to remember in this completely different, shifted space with your people?
Well, again, we are relational. And so maybe I need to invert, always invert. I just learned that this week, invert, always invert. It's one of my new maxims.
Okay.
Look at it from the opposite direction.
Okay.
So I'm gonna look at this from the direction, not of what we need to do with our database, but what we need to not do.
I like that.
What we need to not do with our database is solicit and sell.
Yes.
Our database is a list of relationships, and our goal, and I think this is the key maybe psychologically in people's brains. Remember I said on the funnel, your database is not the top of your funnel.
Yes, it's not.
One mental game or thought experiment to play with is the idea that imagine you had a database and it was illegal to work with anybody in your database. Kind of like if dual agency went away, but this is like if relationships
I
weren't...
couldn't work with my sister.
You could only work with a stranger.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so the only value in your database would be nurturing them for referrals. You can work with their referrals, but you can't work with them. It's a thought experiment.
Yeah, I like that.
What would your job with them look like? Because what that does is it eliminates the capacity to view them as the top of your funnel. You are not communicating with your database with the goal of trying to get them to buy or sell with you.
No.
And I think this is
lovely if they do, but it's not the goal.
Well, that's where I'm going. That's the bonus. That's the cherry on top. If your database works with you, which they will, if you're doing a great job and you can get referrals from them, you're probably going to get them to work with you too. Mm-hmm. But the point of the thought experiment is to help define, again, invert. What are we not doing with our database? We are not communicating with a bunch of people that we know in our friends and family and sphere in order to try and get them to buy with us when it's time. We are endeavoring to provide LRC, leadership, relationship, creativity, to a group of people we know so that we can intrinsically build value into their world. Mm-hmm. How do we help people who own homes, don't own homes, want to own homes, used to own homes, and who live in our community and our friends and family? How do we be a resource to them, not to solicit? And it's about the two different work boots.
Yes, completely.
Our work boots of the trade need to be left at home. Yes. And this is a different set of work boots. And these are the work boots of how do I provide intrinsic value to these people such that when anyone that they bump into that's thinking of buying or selling brings up buying and selling, the first thing that pops in their mind is, oh my gosh, you got to talk to my guy. You got to talk to my gal. Mm-hmm. They're amazing. They are super helpful. And they're not going to say this, but what they're going to feel is they're totally not pushy. They're never trying to get me to buy or sell, but they know so much. They're so valuable. They're so
really
helpful.
Good at their job. Yeah.
And so again, thought experiment if you couldn't. And what are we not trying to do with our data? So what are we trying to do with our database to uninvert? Yeah. We're nurturing and developing relationships. Yeah. We're building value into human beings that we know. And the goal is not to do this with tens of thousands of people, but maybe 100.
Yeah. Quality over quantity in this
then
space.
The second thing we're trying to do is we're trying to teach these people how to refer.
Yep.
Now, first thing is we've got to provide value. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, jab, right hook.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
You've got to do the jabs first. The jabs are provision. Give.
Yep.
The right hook is the big, like, I'm going to punch you out, right? Yeah. That's the ask.
Yep.
But our ask here is not, are you ready to buy? Mm-hmm. Our ask is, hey, do you know of anyone thinking of buying or selling who would benefit from the level of service that I provide? Well, that's a very big sentence. One, I'm not asking
you.
I'm not asking about you. Mm-hmm. I'm asking, who do you know? Mm-hmm. And then I say, that would benefit from the level of service I provide. Well, I can say that even if you've never transacted with me.
Yep.
If you have transacted with me, you know the level of service I provide because you remember those work boots.
Yes.
But if you haven't transacted with me, my goal is that I've provided so much value into your world and insight that you're like, okay, I've not seen you actually on the soccer field, but I've been watching you practicing the whole time. You're clearly brilliant at your trade.
Yep.
That's what we're looking to do. And you don't do that by asking people to buy with you constantly. Are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy? The proverbial real estate ad on social media, like anyone, if you're thinking of buying or selling, like, I'm your guy. Yep. I've got real estate signs that are ready to put in the ground. Would you like to have one of them in your yard? These are fundamental solicitations.
Yep.
There's zero intrinsic value to the recipient of those ads, or that phone call, or that text message,
right,
or that letter. That we need to determine what can we actually provide that would be valuable to people. Updates on their home, easiest place to start.
Yeah,
updates on valuations in their neighborhood, things that have sold. It's in your trade expertise.
And
it's non-solicitive. It's the number one thing that anyone that owns a piece of real estate wants to know.
Deserves to know.
I mean, they're looking at Zillow every few weeks.
What there's estimated.
Even when they're not looking to sell.
Yeah, yeah.
So 1, nurture and develop the relationship. 2, teach them to refer is where I'm going here.
And I feel like that's the piece that maybe people miss out on the most, I think.
Because I think we forget that that's the job. And that's why I like the thought experiment of saying, what if these people weren't allowed to work with you?
Yeah.
If we teach them to refer, we've got to help them understand, 1, that we work by referral.
Yes.
This is our job. This is our goal.
Fundamental starting point.
Yeah. 2, that telling people about you doesn't work. It doesn't work because no one listens and people are busy and they're not going to remember. And so more importantly is to, if you know of someone thinking of buying or selling, hey, reach out to me, let me know, get their permission first, of course. And then my job would be to reach out to them and see if I can be of any value. Sometimes that's just me saying, hey, I'm not an expert in that market. Here's someone who is. But for me to be a resource to them, so let me know, and then I can follow up with them and see if I can be of value. And then the final thing that our job is to do in our database is to reinforce.
Yes.
Pavlov's dogs.
Yes.
So we need to reinforce that behavior. And the most important thing to get in your brain here is we don't reward the behavior. Well, first of all, it's illegal to pay for people for referrals.
So yes, disclaimer.
But it's not illegal to take great care, send people to Disneyland who are great advocates of your business, right? You can take anyone you want to lunch. You can do great things for great people that support you. You can't pay for leads. But reinforce to me means, well, we need to reinforce the behavior, not of sending me someone who buys a house.
Yes.
But
of that referral right away. Yes.
If you are someone that you send me a referral, I immediately say, hey, can I take you to lunch just to say thank you? Or, hey, what's your favorite spot to what? Or, hey, here's a great book, or thank you, right?
Yep.
But we reward for the activity of advocating for you.
Yes.
We don't reward the outcome. And that's not because of the law. We don't reward the outcome because we don't
want... They forget about it by then.
Well, not just that. I don't want people to be scared to send me opportunities where they're like, I don't know if this person's going to buy, or I'm not sure if they're ready to buy. I'll determine that.
Yeah.
Let me work the person.
That's our job.
What I want you to do is send me 5 people, 4 of which go nowhere. But I teach you by way of how I reward you that what I love is the opportunity. I love that you thought of me. I love that you called me and told me about them. So our database is about nurturing and developing, teaching to refer, and reinforcing that activity. And if you do that systematically and consistently over time, you will end up with 10 to 20 A+ people who have referred multiple people, and you will never want for business. And that sounds like a huge promise. It sounds like pie in the sky. It sounds too simple and too good to be true. It is true.
Yes.
And we've seen it time and time again. And I think that's the problem, is we overcomplicate and we get muddled up and we mix these two lists together. And we are too transactional in the relationship space because we misunderstand the job, and we're sometimes
too relational?
Maybe not too relational, because that would confuse people. But the right way to say it is we forget to put our bloody work boots on when it's time to shine.
Go be the expert and actually code.
And I think the number one place where that confusion shows up is in the context where one of our people in our database now decide to transact. And they raise their hand and they say, well, hey, we're thinking of buying. Because you've got a framework for how you think of them and what you're delivering to them. And now they want to buy. And now I'm like, well, wait, are they on my database? They're on both. And now both of these jobs have to happen. But I absolutely am a fool if when someone in my database that I want to turn into a long-term advocate raises their hand with a buyer or seller need, and I don't immediately shift gears into the work boots mode. Because if I can't show them how good I am at my trade, the BJ story, if I can't show them the trade when they're ready to try it out, all of a sudden I lose all my credibility and traction on my goal of turning them into an advocate.
Yeah. And the database portion, that's so well defined, and I hope everybody can really see how these are completely different hats to wear. I just feel like this is the barrier that you have to get through. I mean, especially when you're new or have not tried this approach with your relationships before. First, you must be an option. Then you teach them, I work by referral. Then it is the top of mind awareness, provide value, and then teach them how to refer and how you prefer to receive those. So I just people are in their way on this, I feel like, as far, you know what I mean? They're in their own way because they're afraid to reach out to their people because they're not sure what it is they're supposed to be doing and saying with them. And when you just go, you know what, they do own a house. Don't they deserve to know how their house is performing in this market? And I can just provide that with absolutely zero ask to that.
Well, when you take the ask out.
Yes.
This is why I think the ideas are so important. When you get this in your head, you're liberated to reach out to your database because you truly understand the objective. Let me say it differently. If sneakingly in the back of my brain, I think that my actual goal with my database is to reach out to them to try and get them to buy with me when they're ready, we feel dirty. Because I'm pretending to call you with value and provide you updates. But deep down, I've got a bear trap and I'm trying to ensnare you. Well, of course you're not good at providing value then because you're a scoundrel. But if you wake up, play the thought experiment, I have zero goal to get these people to buy or sell with me. If they did, it would just be a bonus and frankly unexpected. My goal is how do I truly provide so much value into these people's worlds? Almost like I was paid as a consultant. I'm just paid to deliver value to people. I have a salary, they pay me $100,000 a year, and all I have to do is take these 100 people and pour tons of value into their world. And I need to generate referrals for somebody else. I don't get to buy or sell. It fundamentally shifts your thinking, and it helps you define these two separate workspaces. It's not complicated, guys. I mean, this is the thing, but it's maybe complex in its simplicity. And the first step is creating the separation. I love that you're having this conversation. There's two separate lists.
My favorite conversation.
Well, and nothing defines this better than how our CRM is structured. Exactly. There are fundamentally two lists. And they're intentionally separated. And this is the biggest mistake that our industry has always made, is viewing our relationships as the top of our sales funnel. And it's where we miss the capacity to deploy LRC because we fail to understand that LRC in the one list is different than LRC in the other list, because the core human need that each of these different audiences have are different. And I can't sell the same product to both of these people. And clarity on this is literally step one of building a sound business plan, of structuring your week and scheduling your activities. You must understand the two differences here.
And I think what I was even just thinking about the fundamental different work to be done and the confusion between there, I was going to, people will, in my head, misqualify somebody as an A when just because they've worked with them. And I was like, but take a pause for a second. Have you actually taught that person that you work by referral? Have you taught them how to refer? Have they sent you any referrals? Because I want you to look at each of those qualifications with what's the next step, the work to be done to close to the next benchmark, if we were to use that terminology. How do you get a C to a B? How do you get a B to an A to an A plus? And they can't be an A unless they've already practiced giving referrals, in my head, instead of just, oh, they're a past client, they've used me. I feel like it's just different. Even just that little tweak in the way that you think about that is big for me.
That's good. I wonder if the two different shapes is what confuses people. We should almost create two separate funnels, because there is a funnel on the relationship side too. At the top, they're a D. I know them. I don't know. Would they refer?
Yeah,
Maybe
I have no
not.
idea.
I need to make them a C. How would I make them a C? I've got to find, I think they might.
They need to know you're an option, and they might,
And then how do I make them a B? Well, I close for the next conversion. I need to know that they would. Well, how would I find that out? Ask the question.
You have to ask.
If you were thinking of buying or selling, or if you had a friend or family member that was thinking of buying or selling, do you have an agent or an expert advisor that you'd refer them to? Oh, you do. Who's that? Oh, you don't? My goal would be to become that person for you. Now they're a B because they would.
And they said they will,
Now what's the job? To get them to. How do I do that? Stay in touch,
providing
provide value, keep them updated, and ask.
Keep asking.
I got to say, hey, just real quick, coffee's done. Great seeing you. Glad to hear Mike's good. Glad to hear the kids are going to college. Here's a book for you. Hey, by the way, just while I've got you, do you know anyone right now thinking of making a move that I should reach out to that I might be able to be of some value to? And I got to ask. And then if they do refer, now I reinforce. Thank you so much. Here's where we're at. Here's an update. By the way, Mike did end up closing on his property. Here's a great bottle of wine. When can Sally and you come over for drinks? Love to tell you the story of how Mike almost killed the deal. And then all of a sudden they send you a second one. And now you can call them an A plus. But yeah, maybe this is helpful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change the shape.
No.
But conceptually,
Yes.
there's two funnels. Both of them move from the top to the
Separate
bottom.
work to be done.
The funnel of database, it's just outward to inward. That's the difference. The A pluses are at the center of the thing. It's just almost like you're looking down the funnel
Yes,
instead
exactly.
of looking at it sideways.
We draw it like more like a target, because I do say when you have a fully functioning referral-based database, your A pluses are your target. They're like your center that you're always giving the most love to and kind of working your way out. So I like the shape, but you're exactly right. They are different benchmarks when you get to that point
Not
too.
changing the shape today.
Not changing the shape. No, thank you.
So much of this is these thought experiments of how you view it.
Reframe.
A lot of reframing.
Yeah, that's really good. So I do want to just one more time. I think we've kind of inherently spoken about how these two lists work together.
The interplay.
But I want to kind of close the loop on that. So, so yes, just fundamentally from the beginning, your database is not the top of your funnel. However, when we have done the work to create A pluses and A's who gladly refer us time and time again, this does become your number one lead source. That does end up filling the top of your funnel for the majority of your business, which then fundamentally changes your lead generation plan and the way that you have to go about your spokes. So the beauty of these two lists working the way that they're supposed to is the fact that they can then symbiotically start working together. And my hands are moving all over the place right now.
Both sitting here talking with our hands because we're picturing the picture. We've got our database on the
so
left.
clear
We've
in
got
my
our
head.
funnel on the right. And if you're doing this right, the arrow that goes from your database across to your funnel, most of your leads will be referrals and repeat and SOI.
Yeah.
But then at the bottom of the funnel, the goal is not the sale, it's an advocate, which also means that the work to be done through the sales process is not simply the trade.
Yes.
It's also to be planting seeds and cultivating them so that at the end, this person's already kind of primed to show up.
Yes.
Now the arrow goes from the bottom of the funnel across to the database. Now when they enter the database, they enter as a B or an A.
Yep.
Because I've already done.
Instead of as just a new C. Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is we need a name for this. And by the way, we've never used the word fundamental more than in this podcast, but it's the right word because fundamental.
This is where you got to start.
It is the foundation. It's the bottom. It's the center of the whole thing. It is the fundamental relation, the fundamental exchange. It's the fundamental. We need a name for this.
For the actual work of the picture when it's working correctly. Yeah.
There's a beautiful balance between these two things. And if you build your database right, it will feed your funnel. And if you serve your people in your funnel right, it will feed your database.
Yes.
And the two things will create the symbiotic relationship where, and again, it's such a big promise, but I firmly believe it and I've seen it and we've lived this out for 20 years. Your business becomes bulletproof.
Yes, this is your sustainable business.
You serve people you want to serve because they already know, like, and trust you. The drawbridge of trust is already down. You're not trying to swim across moats with alligators and cold calls and stupid crap that everybody else is doing. And you have a higher ROI and you get to work with people who want to work with you.
It is that's where the enjoyable part of this build a better business really becomes into play that I see. So good. So good. And yes, we have used the word fundamental, but these are foundational concepts. So I just wanted to kind of repoint out, if this is something that you want to dig into a little bit more, check out our foundation series. It does have a great podcast all about working by referral and how to sort and qualify and do some of this work that's meant to be done. There's another one on business forecasting, all about your sales funnel and that work to be done. So if you want to dig into this even more, those are some really great resources to check out, as well as we are really passionate about our CRM that we built called Relationally. That we believe does really do the best of what we've been able to find on really working this way on your two lists of people.
Yeah,
I know that's.
Well, I'm off track. I'm thinking about jujitsu.
Oh, okay. But, go there if you want to. What's going on?
You start with the fundamentals and you learn the basics, and it's a lot, and it's 2 years or whatever to get this blue belt and to get to a certain point, and then you get fancy and you go do leg locks and weird chokes and you're dancing around.
Not where my brain goes. Okay.
Well, this is my world.
I know.
But what I've learned is that stepping back into the fundamentals class from time to time.
Yep.
You're never too fancy to go back and perfect the basics.
Make sure it's starting from the right place.
Yeah, and I just think that even for some of our top agents right now, I know some of them that they could use a reset even on some of this. I think that again, the thoughts are powerful. Ideas guide action.
The right ideas.
And I think this is an idea worth cementing into all of your thinking and ensuring that your processes in each of these respective spaces that you clearly, it's really the foundations of marketing. Know your audience and tailor your product for them with their specific needs and wants.
Yeah.
And I think there's maybe the way to sum this whole conversation up is these are two distinct audiences.
Yes.
With two distinct needs and two distinct ways to go about creating value for them. The way we define value is LRC, leadership, relationship, creativity. If you're deploying that value into each of these two spaces separately in the right ways, you're going to win long term.
Yeah. Thank you for having this conversation with me. When I say nerdy passionate about this, I cannot tell you how nerdy passionate I am about these, understanding these differences between these two lists of your people in your business. So thank you for having this conversation with me.
You're a great nerd, passionate nerd. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about how to build a profitable, sustainable, and enjoyable business, go to morethanmorepodcast.com.